from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the hearing, and I appreciate the comments of the ranking member. Let's define what collusion is. Let's actually look at Cornell Law School's definition, an Ivy League definition of collusion in antitrust law. Horizontal collusion exists where competitors at the same market level agree to fix or control the prices they will charge for their respective goods or services. For instance, two parties may collude by limiting or restricting supply, sharing insider information, or dividing the market. It's very clear that the 8 Ivy League member institutions have a long history of colluding with each other and other elite higher education institutions. Back in 1958, they formed a cartel called the Ivy Overlap Group that created a common formula for calculating financial aid packages to ensure that a student admitted to one or more of the overlap group institutions would pay the same maximum price to attend, regardless of the institution that they chose. The overlap group would accomplish this by sharing information and determining the maximum price that admitted students' families could afford to pay. Later, operating under a now expired antitrust exemption, many of the Ivy League institutions and other elite higher education institutions formed the 568 President's Working Group, which likewise created a common formula to ensure 568 PWG schools would not compete on price. So this behavior led to lawsuits and settlements against many of the Ivy League institutions. Dr. Cooper, does this cartel of elite higher education institutions have the ability to raise the cost for students and their families who are attempting to pay for college?
Absolutely, Congressman. I believe the opaque financial aid system enables Ivy League colleges to charge much higher prices than they would be able to in a competitive market. There is a billion-dollar consulting industry that helps Ivy League institutions figure out exactly how much each family is able to pay and then charge that amount.
We've seen collusion on pricing before enactment of the Section 568 exemption, and while the exemption was in effect, now we are concerned it persists today, even though the exemption has expired. What gaps in enforcement have allowed Ivy League institutions to effectively operate as a pricing cartel?
So the prices that colleges charge are very opaque right now. You have to apply and be admitted in order to figure out how much you're going to pay. And at that point, the college sort of has you captive, that it's going to be very difficult for you to comparison shop at that point, go to a different school, and you kind of have to accept the price that the school is charging you, or else maybe not go to college.
So, similar question to Mr. Martin. These institutions, through the overlap group and the 568 President's Working Group, used this common financial aid formula for decades to make sure they weren't competing on price. Do you think that these institutions could still be using that same revenue maximizing formula to calculate financial aid awards that they used while the exemption was in place?
Well, that's the subject of an ongoing litigation in the Northern District of Illinois. And to put a finer point, I make no prejudgment as to what the outcome of that litigation would be. I only note that 12 of the 17 member institutions have settled it for a total of $320 million. It survived a motion to dismiss. It's gone on through discovery. And quite candidly, some of the documents in that case will be challenging for the remaining defendants.
And if they are shown to be using the same formula, could that present significant antitrust issues?
It could. There are substantial damages alleged in the case.
Mr. Shih, Brown's estimated cost of attendance during the 25-26 academic year is $97,284 per year. That means Brown values a degree from its institution at almost $400,000. Do you think a degree from Brown is worth nearly $400,000?
That's a very good question. I think that is that empirically it's just barely worth it. But I think that for the kids who it could help the most, that's too much for them to pay up front.
Appreciate that. I would argue that it does not, the worth is not 4 times the worth of an in-state school or 6 or 8 times that of a community college education. And with that, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chair, I have a UC.
Members recognized.
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record ABC News article, Judge finalizes $25 million settlement for victims of Donald Trump's fraudulent university. And USA Today, Judge finalizes $25 million settlement for students of sham university.
Without objection. Gentleman from California is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you and the ranking member. Thank you for holding this hearing today.